Thank you for watching the On3 Performance Turbo Kit installation on my 1987 Mustang GT. We're going to start by grabbing the package with the supplied boost controller inside and grabbing the vacuum line. Install the airline onto the vacuum fitting on the blow-off valve and then route the line up to the vacuum tree located on the firewall. Cut the line to an appropriate length and then install the line onto a free opening on the vacuum tree. Make sure you secure both sides of the vacuum line with either hose clamps or zip ties. Now we're going to install a vacuum source for the wastegate. We're going to remove a cap fitting that was on the intake manifold and replace it with the supplied barb fitting for the airline. Before installing any of the new supplied air fittings, I went ahead and applied Teflon tape to the threads. Now you're going to pick a spot to mount the manual boost controller bracket. As you can see here, I mounted mine right behind the strut tower. Now we're going to mount and install all the remaining vacuum lines that run to the wastegate and the manual boost controller. On3 Performance does supply a good amount of different fittings for your boost controller and for your vacuum lines. You're going to want to go ahead and grab the T fitting out of the package. Grab the vacuum line coming off the intake manifold and install a T fitting on one of the end barbs. Now grab some more vacuum line and route it down towards the wastegate. Just a side note, I did have to pick up more vacuum line because the amount that On3 Performance provided wasn't enough to cover both the wastegate and blow-off valve. Once you have routed all the vacuum line towards the wastegate, go ahead and plug in the open end to the bottom barb of the vacuum T. Make sure you route all the vacuum lines away from any of the hot parts, and also make sure you either use zip ties or hose clamps to secure your air connections. The vacuum line running from the bottom of the barb will run to the bottom portion of the wastegate. You will then run another vacuum line running from the open end of the T and run it straight to the receiving end of the boost controller. The last vacuum line will run from the boost controller marked with an arrow straight down to the top air fitting of the wastegate. What I used as an indicator is a 90-degree air fitting on the boost controller so I know which vacuum line goes where. Now there are other ways you can route your vacuum lines, as well as running different types of boost controllers. I would recommend checking out Gearhead Rob's YouTube channel. He has a nice video explaining some different ways to route vacuum lines, and he also has a cool forum that you can check out that covers the information as well in more detail. Remember to zip tie or use hose clamps to secure all your air connections and all your vacuum lines so that way you don't cause an air leak. It's also a good idea to give yourself plenty of slack in all the vacuum lines so that way you can avoid any stretching of the line, and it gives yourself plenty of room to mount them out of the way. After making some finalized adjustments, I only had to modify one pipe that came with the kit. I ended up cutting off about 3 inches off this pipe in order to make it fit to the other pipe. Based on your application, you may not have to do this. If you're still going to be running a mass air setup, and if you don't weld in a MAF flange on the pipe, you're going to have to cut each end of each pipe so that way you can splice in your mass air meter. If you watched my reveal video, that was actually the route I was going to take. However, mid-installation, I changed my mind and I'm going to tune the car a different way. More on that in a future video. Now you can start fully tightening down all the clamps and securing the pipes all in place. You may have to adjust some pipes here and there, and you may have to adjust your intercooler a little bit in order to get proper fitment. But essentially, now's the home stretch. Now you can start tightening down all the clamps and making sure everything is tight and good to go. I did end up having to get a different sized belt. This is the belt part number I used. It's a good idea to go ahead and start checking all the tightness of all the fittings, the header bolts, V-band clamps, oil lines, etc. Making sure and going over this a couple times just gives you extra security that you're not going to have any leaks. If you notice any parts coming close to the hot side, make sure that you either use heat tape or some kind of heat shield to prevent any possible failures. And don't forget the important stuff. Make sure you top off your engine with some fresh engine oil, put in a new oil filter, and top off your coolant before starting up the engine for the first time with the kit installed. And that's essentially going to complete the main installation of the On3 Performance Turbo Kit on your Mustang. At this point, essentially, if you were running a mass air meter still, you could start the car. Just make sure if you do so that you prime the engine first before actually letting it fire up so you can get some oil to the turbo. If you do go ahead and start your car, make sure you do let it get up to operating temperature and so you can check for leaks. Once you confirm the car has no leaks, it's a good idea to get your car tuned. You can either pick up a standard do-it-yourself standalone type of kit, or you can have your car trailered to a dyno to have it professionally done. Tuning Fox Body Mustangs, you essentially have limitless options. There's many reputable tuners out there, and there's a lot of different options out there in the aftermarket for you to tune it yourself. Just a side note, there are a lot of resources out there for the installation on one of these kits onto your car. Again, Gearhead Rob, also YouTube has a few videos out there, and if you check the forums, there are plenty of people out there that have provided lots of detailed information on these kits. So again, if you have any specific questions about this kit or the installation, check out those resources. They'll be a lot of help to you. And lastly, your setup may be a little different than mine. For instance, you still may be running air conditioning, which this kit will install with the stock air conditioning unit still in the car. But in general, your installation may go in very similar steps as mine. And that's going to wrap up essentially the main components of the On3 Performance Turbo Kit. Thank you so much for watching.